If you had to point to a few key lessons that you've learned from your own experiences studying abroad, what would they be?
First, I'd say to get outside of your comfort zone. And it's so cliche and it's so obvious, but we often don't really think about what our comfort zone is. There's our cultural comfort zone, and then there's our personality comfort zone. So I talk about my personality. I'm a perfectionist, I'm an introvert, and for me, the experience of going abroad and getting outside my comfort zone is learning to make mistakes and being okay as a perfectionist with making mistakes, learning to talk to strangers and being okay as an introvert with talking to strangers. So it's that sort of personality aspects as well as the cultural aspects of getting outside of your comfort zone, of eating unfamiliar foods, of practicing habits that are different than what you're used to, of taking transportation that's different than you're used to, of engaging in ways that you're not used to. So all that sort of falls under the rubric of getting outside your comfort zone. And I think secondly, it's recognizing that this is everything that you do abroad is an opportunity to learn. So the idea of being willing to listen with humility and to learn, to recognize that you're not always right. And then the third key thing that I'd say is that when I talk to students about what it means to learn another culture, to acculturate to a new place, to gain these skills, I always say it's about not changing who you are, but adding a new dimension. And so that's part of what the imagery and the messaging is of PRISM, is that we're adding another dimension to who we are. We're not changing who we are, but we're adding another component and another layer. And that's a beautiful thing. It's not something to be afraid of.
What advice would you give to students going abroad?
A lot of these same sorts of things. So again, the idea of getting outside of your comfort zone and doing things that are unfamiliar to you. Of course, this doesn't mean doing things that are unsafe, but doing things that feel awkward and that feel different is where learning takes place. One of my favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill, and he says, "I always want to learn, but I'm not always ready to be taught." And so this idea that learning happens often if we open ourselves up to being taught by other people, being taught by situations, being taught by the environment, the things that are going on in the experience. And so it's really about being open to that and being flexible. Flexibility is the name of the game when it comes to being in a new culture. So again, students gravitate to going abroad because they want some things to be new. They want to be flexible about some things, but they often don't realize that there's this whole host of other things that you have to be open to and that you have to be flexible about, whether it's how your Coke is served without ice, or whether there's air conditioning or not, or how much walking you need to do, or any of those kinds of things. So recognizing that openness applies to this minutia and huge level of things that you have to do throughout your day. That's what you're seeking out, and that's what I'm calling you to do while you're there, is to embrace all of that difference. The other thing I would tell students to do is to talk to people whenever and wherever you can. And there's going to be some failures. There's going to be people who don't want to talk to you. There are going to be people who you perceive as rude or who put you in a category or stereotype you. And first of all, that's a good experience. It's good to feel what it's like to be the other. But there are also a whole host of people who are eager to talk, who are curious about you, who welcome the opportunity for dialogue, for cultural exchange, and can provide you such levels of insight that you only get by being in their home, in their comfort zone, in their place, and showing genuine respect and curiosity. So these conversations can take place all the time. It can be with the taxi driver on the way home. It can be a few extra minutes with the store clerk when the store is not busy. It can be going to the same shop all the time and becoming friends with the barista or with the shop owner and having then those entrees to talk a little bit more. That's what I'd say.